Are you ready? 3, 2,
let's go.
1, let's go.
Hey guys, welcome back. Bushcraft family back again in the woods. Not just kidding. Okay, this video is prepping items the government doesn't want you to prep. Yes, there is some prepping items that the government would rather you not to prep. And we're going to go over these. And some you'll agree with and some you may not. And some of these, I want you to comment down below if you think that you're already seeing this quite a bit. Okay? So here we go. One of the first things, as you can imagine, is, you guessed it, is guns. They don't want us to own guns. Certain parties in the government have been trying to get, to only be able to shoot one round out at a time. Yeah. So, you can kind of get where this is going. We've seen it many times. And that's just not, United States. Most governments don't like guns very much. In many countries like UK, they are strict laws on what guns you can own. U.S. preppers are luckier thanks to the Second Amendment, but there are still restrictions. And depending what state you're in and whatnot, they're always trying. Whatever type of weapon it is or whatnot. Last March, Biden called again for a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. You never know who's going to be put in office that will get the job done to remove what we have in our houses now. Our next one is your gold. Yeah. And it's, if you remember history, in fact, it was against the law to own more than $100 in gold. In 1933, President Roosevelt signed an Executive Order 6102, which made it illegal to own more than $100 of gold. Anyone who owned more than that had to exchange it for paper money at a fixed price set by the government. So if gold was $20 an ounce, the government can say, well, we're only going to pay you $2 a pound or $2 an ounce or whatever. Yeah. It kind of sucks, huh? That ban wasn't even repealed until 1974. So all those years, it was illegal to own more than 100 in gold. When Roosevelt imposed the restrictions, the U.S. dollar was backed by gold. Even though this is not the case nowadays, gold is still valuable, and the government still lies to keep control of it. Now, this next one you may have heard. In some cases, depending on what you're going to be using them for and whatnot, and especially local laws are against having livestock. Some counties don't allow pigs. Some counties don't allow, for whatever reason, sometimes it's smell, sometimes it's, there's bigger businesses like a big chicken farm or, close by and they don't want competition, so they pay the officials to look the other way and say, hey, we don't want those type of businesses around us, or farms or anything like that. So there is a lot of times in towns, you need to check your local laws very carefully to make sure that you can actually have animals on your property. Yeah, your property, but yeah. And again, sometimes they'll come up with, the government doesn't trust us to look after animals properly, to prevent them from spreading diseases or safely turn them into food. So that is the reasoning behind it. The real reason is they don't want you being self-sufficient. Plain and simple. You know, if you raise a cow and some chickens and stuff, you don't have to go get milk or cheese or eggs. You grow your own food and that stuff. That means when something happens and they shut the stores down and stuff, you have your food. You don't have to go running and crying to the government and saying, I need food. You know, you have it. Not saying that would ever happen. That's just, theory. Our next one is gas. Yeah. Believe it or not, this is kind of the store. Federal agencies tell gas stations what sort of containers their consumers are allowed to fill with fuel. And the rules are steadily getting tighter. Under a 2020 law, all portable fuel containers, even plastic gas cans, must include an anti-explosion feature. So if you got an old gas can, from 5-10 years ago, go to fill. No, we can't do that. Even if it's, not propane, but kerosene, diesel, or whatever you're going to use for heating or anything. Or say you just want to go load up some diesel for your farm machinery or something like that, tractors and such. It has to be a certain type of tank that you fill up. Some of these laws around transporting or storing fuel are common sense. It's just common sense stuff. If you remember TV footage of people trying to fill up plastic bags and just weird stuff that people do, during the pandemic thing, that thing. And that's where a lot of these new laws came about. They said, well, hey, we'll keep these videos going all over the internet, and that'll give us ammunition to redo the laws. And that's when the new 2020 law come up that all containers have to have an anti-explosion feature coming to a gas station near you. Our next one. Radios. Yeah, your radios you have to have a license for your radio, controlled by the government. you know. If you want a more powerful radio, then you'll need an amateur radio license issued by the Federal Communication Commission, government. The frequencies and power levels you can use are regulated. Yeah. Next one, and you notice how I kind of just left that one the way it is. Our next one is seeds. Could be controlled, become a controlled commodity. A strong garden starts with good seeds. But big agriculture and government agencies have been tightening the rules, yes, the rules on seed ownership and the trade for these in years. They've been doing this for years. In some countries, only approved varieties can be sold, making it harder and harder to find traditional heirloom seeds or non-GMO seeds. That's why it is serious preppers maintain a private seed vault, and they should be, saving their own seeds, learning how to save their seeds, and restocking these seeds every so many years, and learning how long your seeds last. Meaning, say you want to save tomato seeds, a certain variety of tomato seeds, and you go you store them the proper way, and in 3 years you try to germinate those, and you see how much. Say you take 20 seeds and you see the percentage of germination. They did really good. They did like 79%, something like that, 80%. So you know that they last at least 2 to 3 years. So you increase that. You do it again in 5 years and see how those seeds are doing. If they're still good, they're going to last 5 years. It's different, and depending on how you do your seeds and how you store your seeds and all kinds of other stuff. You got to do a lot of research. It's just not, you don't read the back of the seed packet that you bought at the store, because most of the time they want to sell you seeds. So they're not going to tell you the best way to store and save seeds. Something to think about. Okay, you guessed it. Here's our next one. As strange as it might sound, during a national crisis or under Marshall Dillon, so to speak, if you follow where I went with that. If you didn't, comment down below and somebody will tell you what Marshall Dillon means. The government could step in to manage the distribution of food during a national crisis, especially if supply chains start breaking down. That means the stockpile you've spent months and months or maybe years building could be at risk of being seized for the greater good. Yeah, that means they can come into your house and take what food that you've been storing for the greater good of the community or military or government use. They can take your ammunition. They can take medicine, first aid, things like that. There are many ways to go about making sure this commodities would not be taken, but we won't go into that. Maybe if you guys would want, we can get into some of that in another video. But we will move on to our next thing. And I talk about this quite a bit because it's, to me, the second most important thing of survival. First being, oxygen. Can't go very long without oxygen, right? 3 minutes. Well, you got 3 days to go, and you're pretty much toast without water. So, yes, water storage might be restricted as well. Yes, you heard that. Water is more crucial than food, but local laws often make it harder than you'd think to collect and store it. I've talked about this before. In the city here, we're not allowed to collect rainwater. There's the mosquitoes and stuff, and they lay eggs and they make more mosquitoes. Well, you cover it up and you don't have that problem. But yeah, beside the point. In many states, collecting rainwater is restricted or even prohibited without a permit. And sometimes you don't even get a permit. You're just not allowed to. For instance, some local authorities claim it's about water rights or public resource management. They got the fancy words for everything. But the reality is that they don't want individuals controlling their own supply. If something happens and they need to control a large amount of people, what is the best way to do it? Food and water. If you can't legally build a cistern considered hidden or module storage, such as buried tanks or portable containers, you need to come up with more interesting ways of storing it, so to speak, hiding it, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, you need to do some research on how to store water. I've talked about it till I'm blue in the face and whatnot. I may start coming back with some of this old stuff that I did 3 or 4 years ago. Our next one, and very interesting with this one. I didn't think this one was on the list of this, but our next one is generators and power sources are as valuable as gold. When the grid does go dark, your generators, solar panels, and battery banks become more than just conveniences. Power means a sense of normalcy. It's close enough. It's a word. Trust me. And that makes it valuable. Almost too valuable for the government to ignore. In a long-term emergency, officials may move to coordinate or redistribute power generation equipment, your generator, in the name of maintaining public order. Translation, the system you built and paid for could be claimed for community use. Yep. That's why it's critical to protect your own energy independence before the lights go out. And again, I'm not going to go into how you do it, but, there's ways of camouflaging things and, yeah, we won't go into that though. So, you'd expect governments to approve an and support preppers, really, because we're not a strain on the economy, and we're not strain on the supply chains and stuff like that. Because if, and again, I don't like to use the word preppers because, nowadays they get a bad rap and they're one dimensional and stuff. To me, the definition of a prepper is somebody that stores a lot of food in their house waiting for something bad to happen. Well, I like the survivalist because I want to grow a garden, or I want to put my food up. I want to dehydrate food. I wish I had a freeze dryer. I would do that, but they're expensive. I want to store my water. I want the know-how to purify my water. I want the knowledge to be able to go get water and make it safe for drinking and cleaning and all that stuff. So that's my 2 cents in it. And I don't, now there's tons of channels that they have prepper in their name, and, they do 20-minute videos, and about 10 minutes of that video is they're selling things, but we won't talk about that. Anyway, you need to think about the stuff that you do prepare for, or prep, however you want to put it, for bad times or just for plain old living. I've been using a lot of my preps here and there for a good while. I'm trying to resupply it, but it's hard. The only time I do get to resupply a lot of this stuff is when I grow it in the garden. But I'm going to go ahead. We're 20 minutes into this video. Hopefully you guys stayed to the end of this, and we'll catch you on the next one. God bless.